My feeling is, these days, there's a lot less frontier and a lot more civilization than is truly necessary.
Disney is erasing their own history, theming, and identity. It's gonna take a while, but let me explain. Sam Langhorne Clemens once worked as a steamboat pilot where he gained his pen name Mark Twain. In steamboat navigation, Mark Twain means 2 fathoms, or 12 feet, which is a safe depth for steamboats. He drew inspiration for Tom Sawyer from his friends and his own boyhood experiences in Hannibal, Missouri. The name Tom Sawyer came from a fireman Twain befriended when he lived in San Francisco. In the preface, he says most of the adventures recorded in this book really occurred. About 80 years later, Walt Disney was inspired to make those same adventures come to life. I'll get to Walt Disney World's island soon, but we can't talk about that without mentioning the history of the original at Disneyland. So legend has it that just a few days before construction was set to begin, Walt took the original designs by Mark Davis home and reworked them, creating his own landscape complete with caves. This would be the only attraction designed solely by Walt Disney. The attraction's grand opening on June 16, 1956, included catfish shipped from Missouri, which were fried and served at the Plantation House restaurant. 2 kids from Mark Twain's hometown playing Tom Sawyer and Becky Thatcher read a faux declaration from the governor of Missouri that the island was annexed to the state of Missouri. The island is only accessible by log raft, true to Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn's experience. On the island, you could find caves just like the labyrinth of passages described in the book, a suspension bridge, the old mill, views of the steamboat, canoes and keelboats, a fishing pier where you could actually go fishing in a freshly stocked river, and Fort Wilderness, which had a canteen and trading posts stocked with pelts, guns, knives, and indigenous craft. A map from 1957, just 1 year after opening, shows the addition of Tom and Huck's treehouse, Pontoon Bridge, Castle Rock, and Teeter-Totter Rock. The 3rd edition, from 1959, removes the title of highest point at Disneyland from the treehouse because it was now given to the Matterhorn. The next notable change was the removal of the fishing pier from the attractions list in the 1967 6th edition brochure. Then, in the 1970 7th edition, the fishing pier label was removed from the map. The fishing experience was removed entirely, most likely due to unreleased catches eventually being thrown away by guests and the impracticality of keeping the fish throughout the park day. 1973 is when Tom Sawyer Island at Walt Disney World opened, just before the downfall of its counterpart at Disneyland. In the summer of 2003, the gates of Fort Wilderness closed and never reopened. The fort was and is still used for the needs of the Fantasmic show. The island remained virtually unchanged until the 2007 Pirates Lair on Tom Sawyer Island refurbishment, which coincided with the 3rd Pirates of the Caribbean film. Tom and Huck ran away to this island to become pirates, but they also included characters and elements from the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise in this retheme. The old mill was changed into Lafitte's Tavern, where a pirate band performs. The caves became Dead Man's Grotto with more pirates elements. Smuggler's Cove got a captain's wheel and a bilge pump where you can pump water out of a shipwreck, revealing pirate skeletons. Pirate's Den, you get the point. In 2016, 6 trading cards were distributed throughout Disneyland, each depicting a Rivers of America attraction. When put together, the cards made a map of the island. Pirates Lair still stands today, and Walt Disney World's Tom Sawyer Island, which has stayed more true to Walt's original vision, does not. When the island opened at Walt Disney World in 1973, 2 teenagers from Mark Twain's hometown were chosen to play Tom Sawyer and Becky Thatcher, similar to Disneyland's grand opening. They would join singers, dancers, and Disney characters on the second brand new Richard F. Irving steamboat, later renamed to the Liberty Bell. Guests would take free-floating rafts powered by natural gas across the Rivers of America over to the island, each named after a character from the book: Tom Sawyer, Becky Thatcher, and Mr. Joe. The actual character name is not exactly politically correct, so I will be calling him Mr. Joe. The names were removed from the rafts in 2022, probably because of that. There's a hidden Mickey in the rockwork for this Frontierland bridge that is only visible from the rafts. There's also what some say is a partial hidden Mickey in the raft loading area in these tomatoes. Beneath it is a tin can label from the late 1800s. There's also an old Farmer's Almanac thermometer and this wanted poster for Sam and Belle Starr, which is based on a real story. They were known and wanted for murder, housing criminals on Cherokee land, and stealing horses. A few different flags are used at the loading area to represent different things, such as which loading docks are in use. After a tug, swing, and a bump, guests arrive to Tom's Landing, or during busier times, Huck's Landing, and paper maps would be handed out to help guests navigate the island, which is no longer in practice today. Instead, large maps have been put up in 2 locations on the island and 1 at the raft loading dock. In the early 2000s, cast members began the practice of hiding a handful of paintbrushes around the island, and when found by a guest, they would be rewarded with a fast pass. This ended around 2012, with the rumored cause being guests storming the island and running to be the first to get a paintbrush. The paintbrush game was brought back briefly in 2020, with the prize being a certificate that read, "Congratulations, Tom Sawyer lost his paintbrush playing on the island, but thanks to your good eye, Tom can get back to his chores and you can take the afternoon off." This certificate grants you the official title of Tom Sawyer Island Paintbrush Finder. Huck's Landing has rocking chairs and a beautiful view of the Liberty Bell as it passes by. Tom's Landing has restrooms, drinking fountains, and a checkerboard to play while you wait on your raft back to the mainland. From Tom's Landing, you can walk to the left towards Potter's Mill, which is a windmill named after the town drunk from the Tom Sawyer book, Muff Potter. In recent days, the windmill and the adjacent Little Crooked Bridge have both been closed off, likely due to deterioration. You can also walk to the right toward Harper's Mill, named after Joe Harper, one of Tom and Huck's friends who runs away with them. Some say it's also named after Imagineer Harper Goff, who worked closely with Walt. This once working watermill contains a hooting owl with glowing eyes and a bluebird nested in a gear, which are both references to the Disney short The Old Mill. This was the first use of Disney's multiplane camera. The mill used to be bright red, but along with the neglect of the water wheel came the neglect of the paint on the mill. Upstairs on the hill, you can find the spring that provided water for the mill, traveling over a guest walkway and dripping water onto them below. Since the water feature was abandoned, giant frogs took residency, and I was very happy to visit them every time we came to the island. There was another spring on this hilltop which created waterfalls down each side, but in December of 2024, the pond was neglected and slowly dried up, killing all the fish and snails who once called it home. This was the same time the pond next to Potter's Mill dried up as well. Next to the hilltop springs are 3 picnic tables, which are the perfect place to relax in the shade and away from crowds. This hilltop was once known for its merry-go-round rock and teeter-totter rock, but shortly after a playground themed to a salvage fort made out of boat parts, called Scavenger's Fort, was added to the other end, the playground made of rocks was removed. The new playground has a crow's nest and a helm that has since been taken away. Underneath the fort, kids can crawl through a smokestack from a ship. And it's really cute, but it just doesn't measure up to the fun of the old merry-go-round and teeter-totter rocks. Finding these photos of the rocks was like finding gold. There are not many out there at all. And speaking of gold, there just might be some underneath this playground in Old Scratch's mystery mine. Old Scratch is Aunt Polly's old term for the devil. The mine is inspired by iconic roadside attractions like the Oregon Vortex and the Gravity House on Confusion Hill in California, which also inspired the Mystery Shack in Gravity Falls. These attractions use crooked walls to create the illusion that gravity has shifted. The room in the mine shaft that makes you feel all crooked features water seemingly flowing uphill, and a hidden goofy side profile in the crystals above it. And if you can't see him, he is facing to the right. A small boarded up area in this room allows a peek at another water feature. The walls throughout this mine have glimmering gold scattered throughout, leading up to a stretch of mine shaft that uses forced perspective to make it look longer than it really is. It also creates an illusion that you're growing as you walk down it beneath the flickering lanterns. The other walk-through tunnel is Mr. Joe's cave, where he meets his fate in the book. The sign at the entrance was taken away in 2022, the same time the names on the rafts were removed. However, Mr. Joe's name remained on the island map up until the island closed. Inside the cave, eerie faces with blue-green light look over you as wind howls and bats echo. Stalactites and stalagmites join together to make pillars that create several pathways to go, referencing the cave in the book's winding passages and chambers. A small wooden bridge brings you across a bottomless pit, which Tom and Huck mention while looking for treasure. It also reminds me of the one Mr. Joe fell down in the movie. Toward the end of the island's life, the cave had issues with flooding, especially in the pit, ruining the illusion. The rockwork in these caves is remarkably accurate to some caverns in Florida that also feature stalactites and stalagmites, which you can't touch in real life. So being able to in this cave as much as you want to is a unique experience on its own. Seashells and fossils can be found embedded into the stone, which the limestone caves in the panhandle of Florida about 4 hours away from Disney also have. You'll exit near Poor Old Jim's shack, and Poor Old Jim's dock has been closed off for quite some time now for unknown reasons. Next to it is the good old barrel bridge surrounding Smuggler's Cove, an exciting adventure for us and entertainment for those in line for the Haunted Mansion. My personal favorite method is running across at full speed. After all, that's Tom and Huck's way. The barrel bridge has had issues staying open over the years, even on the last Pixie and Pirate Pass holder day to visit the island. It was closed all day until the last minute when we were leaving the island at closing. All that running on the barrel bridge makes you work up an appetite. And on opening day, you could find Aunt Polly's Landing, which was quick service dining famous for its fried chicken with outdoor patio seating over the water and a beautiful view of Liberty Square, Frontierland, the steamboat, and the old keelboat attraction dock. The perfect place to sit and cool off in the shade with a waterfront breeze as you watch a real 3-story steamboat paddle its way through the river. The restaurant was later renamed in 1995 to Aunt Polly's Dockside Inn, and in 2001 the sign was removed, marking the beginning of its end. It was only open again in 2015 from March to April, and again in December 2018 through December 2019. And that was the last time it would ever be open again. Vending machines were added next to it in 2007, but toward the end of the island's life, they rarely worked, to the point where someone made an entire Instagram dedicated to it called Tom Sawyer Island Coke. And my mom has personally fallen victim to these money-stealing machines. Next to Aunt Polly's is Catfish Cove, a small dock named after Disneyland's fishing pier. The dock has been closed off for quite some time now, but there is something special nearby. That's the fence Tom was told to whitewash in the book, and it looks like he signed his name along with Becky's to show his love for her, and Huck came along to join the fun. Let's make our way over to the suspension bridge called Superstition Bridge to the other island. Yes, it's technically 2 islands, which has the best views of Big Thunder Mountain. It also has some crates which read Bowie Knife Co., a reference to Jim Bowie or Bowie, a knife fighter who was part of the Battle of the Alamo. He was also the inspiration for these bangers.
Here comes Jim Bowie with his knife. Bowie knife, Bowie knife.
There's also some crates that say RMC Tools, which could stand for Railroad Mining Company, or according to this Facebook post, a cast member told them in 2010 that it stands for Robinson Mining/Manufacturing Company, depending on who you ask, but there's no confirmation either way. On opening day, the fort was named Fort Sam Clemens after Mark Twain's real name. Later in 1996, it was renamed to Fort Langhorne, which is his middle name, minus the E at the end. This was 1 year after the entire island was briefly renamed to Tom and Huck Island to promote the movie. Inside Fort Langhorne are 8 moving figures, 7 of which being in the blacksmith area. You've got 2 clucking chickens sitting in a nest of hay above a speaker that's very well hidden. 2 horses shooing away flies with their tails, 1 dog wagging his tail and drinking from the bucket, and 2 men hard at work. The last moving figure is a sleeping guard in the guardhouse with his chest breathing. Legend has it that his skeleton was originally going to be used in the Haunted Mansion in the Spiderweb room, now the Endless Staircase. His name was Webster, or the Man in the Spider Web, and while some say that he was there when it first opened in 1971, there is no footage, only audio. The fort also has 5 rifle roosts, 4 towers, and 1 big room, all with rifles that can turn left and right and make this noise when you pull the trigger. Fun for the whole family, shooting up Big Thunder Mountain and the Liberty Bell. As long as the rifles aren't missing or broken, as they often have been in recent years. 2 cannons are pointed toward Big Thunder with a sign reading "Use caution when shooting," which some interpret as "use caution," while others interpret as "put cotton in your ears before the big boom." There are restrooms in the fort, the ladies' room being labeled as powder room, another one with 2 interpretations. A powder room in a fort would store all the gunpowder, but in the ladies' room is where we powder our noses. The fort also had a cantina with frozen lemonade, which has since been abandoned. Other details include a well, a checkerboard, a hidden Mickey on the railing in a rifle roost, a hidden Mickey in the blacksmith shop, and one on horse equipment that has since been replaced with equipment from the Grand Floridian. The escape tunnel is the only true way to exit the fort, but it is a tight squeeze. Small windows let natural light peek through as you make your way closer to the opening. And at the end of the tunnel is Tom Sawyer Island's biggest mystery, WQ. Who is WQ? Is it Walt Disney's alter ego? Is it an Imagineer who worked on the island? Of all the research I've done, there are no answers to this anywhere. If you have any info on this, please leave it in the comments, and I really hope this mystery does not go unsolved and disappear with the island. Jaden also noticed at the end of Mr. Joe's cave looks like it has the initials VX in the wall. Although it doesn't look as intentional as the WQ, it is something to take note of. Some other notable things on the island, only visible from the Liberty Bell, include the burning cabin, which was also featured at Disneyland. The real flames on the Disney World cabin stopped burning in 2005 when the Liberty Bell went down for refurb for about a year. They turned them off because no one would be seeing them, but when the Liberty Bell came back, the flames did not. It's said that the pipes deteriorated due to the year of no use. Plenty of deer and moose figures can be seen from the Liberty Bell, one of which can be seen from the island itself if you look closely. The entire area outside the fort is labeled Indigenous Territory. Once again, the original name is not politically correct. Across from the island is the village, also visible from the Liberty Bell and from the train on both sides. There are teepees, canoes, and so many static and moving figures that I hope survive the changes to this area. Lush Florida vegetation on both sides of the boat are populated with all kinds of animals. Buoys line the rivers named Raccoon Point, Deer Crossing, Devil's Elbow, Tree Snag Reef, Crawdad Shoals, and Howling Dog Bend, named accurately due to the sound of Haunted Mansion behind it. Mike Fink's clothes can be seen hanging on a line outside of a pirate cave, like from Davy Crockett and the River Pirates. The pirates can be heard inside the cave making a ruckus with lights flickering and flashing, and a keelboat is stationed out front ready to prove who's king of the river. But Davy Crockett, Mike Fink, nor Jim Bowie can protect us from the fate of Tom Sawyer Island. I'll start out my opinions with some facts that are, in my opinion, sad. The first fact being that so many animals call this place home. There's birds, lizards, fish, frogs, snails, turtles, butterflies, bees, and so many other types of bugs. And Disney has already proven to me that they don't take the best care when it comes to these animals. The second fact is that these changes continue the erasure of a handful of dying arts that are historic and crucial to the Disney park experience. One of which is turnstiles, which were found at the raft and steamboat loading areas. Turnstiles are being removed from attractions left and right. The most recent being the iconic People Mover turnstiles. The next thing we lose along with the island is something crucial, a playground. The last playground they removed before this stood near Splash Mountain. Disney prides itself on being a place enjoyed by parents and their children, and what better representation for that than a playground for kids on an island described by guests as a playground for adults. Tom Sawyer Island was the perfect place for kids to get some energy out and run around carefree while adults take a break from the chaos that comes along with vacationing. Grandparents are familiar with the story, and people my age read it in school because of the historical context and Tom learning right from wrong. It's truly an attraction for all ages, which is what made it timeless for generations of families to enjoy. We not only lose this classic American story, we lose the classic activity of waving at strangers from across the way. For some reason, being on a moving steamboat makes for the perfect occasion for adults to wave at each other, or in some cases yell compliments about your Tom Sawyer hat from across the water. The steamboat and train interact as well, somewhat frequently from across the way. When they line up just right, they'll sometimes do a shave and a haircut, and it's such a special thing to witness. The last dying art we lose is the most tragic to me personally, which is plant labels. The macadamia nut plant label has recently been removed from the Swiss Family Robinson's treehouse, and although the one on Tom Sawyer Island had been neglected to the point of zero legibility unless you have a long stick, it was still there and it still mattered to me. This island is what puts the park in theme park. You can picnic and just escape into nature, which studies prove lightens moods and have calming effects, something especially important in the stressful times of reservations, virtual queues, and lightning lanes, which this island requires none of. The trees provide shade and evapotranspiration, which releases water vapor and cools the surrounding area, which is why shade from plants feels cooler than shade from anything else. The cool breeze and kinetic energy you get from the rivers from all angles is something you just can't get anywhere else in the Magic Kingdom. Not to mention the unique experience of taking a raft to an attraction, going on a self-guided tour of said attraction, and having a completely different experience every time you visit. It's something you're guaranteed little to no wait for, and you can go at your own pace for as little or as long as you want to on the island. The Liberty Bell is another reliable attraction because you can just walk right on if you catch it at the right time, and you get a lot of bang for your buck with the ride time being a whopping 20 minutes. Plus, you can bring food and drinks onto it, making for the perfect snack spot with amazing views. The boat and island offer unique views of the attractions surrounding it, which you otherwise would not see, and it gives you time to think about visiting those attractions, similar to the People Mover. They're both amazing rides on their own, but they serve as sort of an advertisement or preview for the other things you can do nearby. This is just one of many ways the island and steamboat made money for Disney back in the day, but nowadays they've stopped putting that money back into it. And you may have noticed a running theme by now that many aspects of the island have been greatly neglected, especially in recent years. If I put my tinfoil hat on and conspire about this, I want to say that Disney did this on purpose to make guests stop caring about the island and be more agreeable with its destruction. However, Disney in recent years as a whole has neglected and abandoned a lot of things and is no longer exactly the well-oiled machine people believe them to be. I also don't think they can or would plan far enough ahead for something like that, just based on other recent decisions. So why is Disney abandoning Tom Sawyer Island and the Liberty Bell for good? The only conclusion I can come to is money. These attractions don't have lightning lanes, which directly make money for the company. They're only losing money on maintenance for things like water features, making sure barrels float, and fixing rifles in the rifle roost. So they quit doing those things and plan for an attraction they can sell lightning lanes for, something attached to a popular IP that will likely have a nice, long wait time. And if they have to sacrifice the theming of Frontierland, so be it. They've done it before. The addition of the car with Tiana's Bayou Adventure changes the entire time period of this area of Frontierland. The buildings from Liberty Square through Frontierland are labeled by the year they represent chronologically and symbolizes the colonization of the westward frontier. Pecos Bill's Tall Tale Cafe all the way at the end takes place in 1878. The first automobile was not even invented until 1885. The Tiana's Bayou Adventure ride takes place in 1927, 1 year after The Princess and the Frog movie takes place. While I can appreciate that national parks, the inspiration for Piston Peak, can fit into Frontierland flawlessly, the addition of modern cars erases the entire point of this area. The point is to time travel to an entirely different era, that of the wild frontier. This area will no longer be Frontierland. This is Disney's explanation of how Piston Peak fits into the surrounding land. Since the early days of Magic Kingdom, adventurous guests have traveled across space and time as they pass from Liberty Square to Frontierland. Starting with architectural influences from upstate New York and colonial America in Liberty Square, before traveling to a Berry Fun concert in the North Woods, a stop by New Orleans at Tiana's Bayou Adventure, and ending in the Arizona Bluffs at Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. This only explains things geographically, not chronologically, which they've conveniently left out. They also say Piston Peak National Park will be part of the largest expansion in the history of Magic Kingdom. This part I have an issue with as well, because Piston Peak alone is not expanding anything, but this verbiage makes it seem as such, which has led countless fans to spread the word. But they chose their words wisely. It's part of the largest expansion, and I think they're just grouping it in with the upcoming Villains Land, which is absolutely an expansion. They also focus on how this land will be hidden from the rest of the park, which is a shame considering the kinetic energy and interaction between guests in all of these areas beforehand. From the outside, trees will provide a natural barrier between the off-road rally and other parts of Frontierland and Liberty Square, which sounds like there will be no more views of Frontierland and Liberty Square from afar, which works thematically but feels like a downgrade in the sense that the area won't feel as open as it once was. Frontierland is shrinking, and Americana is being erased, ironically right after the 4th of July. But maybe they have something up their sleeve they haven't yet shared with us. Let's take a closer look at the concept art to more accurately determine what their plans might look like as of now. Piston Peak appears in the Planes, Fire, and Rescue movie and is inspired by Yosemite and Yellowstone National Parks. Keep in mind that Disney has been known to ignore their concept art in the past and change things up a bit, so these plans aren't plans that are set in stone. Although I do hope they're close because this looks so much better than the original concept art, which did not include any water. Disney had to present their plans to South Florida Water Management District to get a construction permit approved, and in September of 2024, the SFWMD responded with a multi-page list of problems with the original application and asked for more details about the water drainage changes and its impact to the surrounding environment. The rivers of America are not only connected to the Seven Seas Lagoon, which is not only connected to Bay Lake, it's connected to river systems that are so long they go off Disney property. So whether the new concept art, including a portion of the river, is to mend issues with the Water Management District, or if it's a response to fan outcry, I'm grateful at least some of it is staying. There seems to be one ride and one possible walkthrough attraction with barrel bridges. If these are accessible to guests and meant to be a piece of Tom Sawyer Island we can still enjoy, I will be so happy. There's also a water wheel right there that will hopefully work. Disney states that guests will be able to see and explore the Visitor Lodge, Ranger HQ, trails, and more, all set within the Disney and Pixar Cars universe. While I don't think this trail can live up to the adventure of Tom Sawyer Island and its caves, I do appreciate that they are keeping some sort of exploration aspect, which is important to the national park setting. As for the ride itself, I'm not a huge fan of replacing a choose-your-own-adventure type of attraction with a ride that straps you down and forces you to see the same thing every time. Not very exploration of them. It seems like this middle area that's fenced in may be part of the trail, or maybe it's enough a plot of land for a flat ride, like Mater's Junkyard Jamboree, or maybe it could be like a tractor corral, but that's all just pure speculation, and I have no idea what their plan is, but I'm very curious. It seems like the main walking path inside of Piston Peak is just one big U-turn, with the exception of a few platforms that overlook the ride. And speaking of which, I want to start out by saying I appreciate the references to Mine Train through Nature's Wonderland, like the Devil's Paint Pots. Those and the frontier formations around them serve as a sort of expansion to the desert area around Big Thunder, which is something I greatly appreciate. They also have a mountain with waterfalls structured very similarly to Cascade Peak from Mine Train through Nature's Wonderland. In fact, the half-desert, half-mountain range layout looks almost identical. Imagineers did an amazing job on that, and I'm sure they knew it would help ease the pain of the Disney history fans. I also want to give them credit for not just going with a carbon copy of Radiator Springs Racers over in California. If the Imagineers had a choice to drop the IP just based off of this concept art, I feel like they would, just so it would fit within the time period. If we could be in a stagecoach, prairie wagon, or train, it would fit perfectly within Frontierland. And if they have rainbow caverns inside these mountains, I'll shit my pants. That might be the icing on the cake that would make me slightly forgive them for putting cars in Frontierland. Just maybe. Besides the cars, my main concerns with Pooped In Peak are the sightlines, but not for the reason you might think. While I do have faith in Imagineering to hide the cars from Haunted Mansion and the surrounding land and drown out the noise with water features such as the Cascade Peak waterfalls, I don't think they can completely hide them from the lift hill on Big Thunder. You can see everything from that lift hill. If they do successfully block the cars from our site with this tree line, the trees would have to dwarf Big Thunder. And that's the point I want to make here. Recently at Disneyland, a gift shop has been added between Tiana's and Haunted Mansion that ruins the forced perspective and makes the two attractions look so much smaller. With the addition of these new large mountains at Disney World, I worry that Haunted Mansion, Tiana's, and Big Thunder will suffer the same fate. Only time can tell, but either way, we're getting a lot more trees, which means a lot of shade, and I do appreciate that. We also get a ton of water features and beautiful landscapes, which I'm excited for and curious to see how they fit all of this in this plot of land. I'm also curious to see what the view from Haunted Mansion will be and if it will live up to watching people on the island. And lastly, I'm curious what the view from this turn on Big Thunder will be, because part of the thrill beforehand was the feeling that you'll be flung into the water below. If you ask me, who knows nothing about anything, we could have Tom Sawyer Island and Piston Peak. Walt Disney World's property is twice the size of Manhattan, something they've prided themselves on, and something Walt Disney was seeking property in Florida for, the blessing of size. Disney World would have expansion plots for future use in places like the World Showcase and Adventureland. And considering that most of the land was swamp beforehand and part of Epcot was built on a sinkhole, I think they could work with most any type of land. The most convenient spot would be this piece of land beyond Big Thunder. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? A guest pathway right underneath the train's bridge is all you need. That's all you need. But a lot of folks say the land is just too swampy. If you haven't seen or heard, they've already cleared out a ton of trees for land for their construction site, which is visible from the monorails. And that's all the proof I need that this land is stable enough to put things on. Plus, it gives them more space than they have to work with in Frontierland, so here's my concept art. There's a walkway next to Tiana's Bayou for the parade floats to come out of, with some trees next to it. So what I propose is an overpass for guests to walk over the backstage area separating Frontierland from this construction site area. The trees next to the walkway can go to make room for the parade route, and they can move to either side of the overpass, along with more foliage and rock work here and there. Along with the trees could be a berm to serve as a barrier for the guests to prevent seeing the backstage areas, and the same can go for the rest of Piston Peak to hide it from the monorail and the surrounding roads, which is similar to what they were already planning to hide Piston Peak from the rest of Frontierland. As for Tom Sawyer Island, I would leave it right where it is, but give it a major refurb. The holes in the rockwork would be patched up, fiberglass would no longer be sticking out, and the lanterns in the caves would not be bright white LEDs. But most importantly, it would have 2 quick service food windows once again, because I believe with the right menu, that's all it takes for the island to earn enough money to pay for itself. What better way to get people to buy refreshments at Aunt Polly's than to put them on a hot island in Florida? Speaking of the heat, I'd add ceiling fans to Aunt Polly's dockside seating, and I see those speakers up there too. I'd put those in use again. The AC in the caves was kind of neglected toward the end, so I definitely want to return that to its fully functional state. The rock playground would come back in a safer way. All the rifles and the rifle roosts would be present and working. Basically, in a perfect world, the island would be repaired to its former glory with all of its elements in working order. And let's bring back the keel boats while we're at it. Plus, if Disney wants to profit off the Liberty Bell so badly, I hate to say it, but they love to close regular things off for the rich, so they could turn the indoor areas of the boat into a DVC or Club 33 lounge type thing. Not that I'd be okay with it, it's just that there are so many different ways they could keep this area alive and profitable, and that's just one of them that I could see them going for. Does this concept art look beautiful? Yes. Is it a good move for them to have references to Tom Sawyer Island and Mine Train through Nature's Wonderland? Yes. Is Disney making a mistake by going with the Cars IP? Absolutely. I also have an issue with them calling this an expansion while they're cutting Frontierland in half by changing the time period. I'm not going to boycott Piston Peak, and I do think I'll end up having fun there regardless of the talking cars. It's just such a shame to see Disney removing their classic theming and along with it, their history and identity. Not to mention the generations of adventures and memories made here. I want to share some of my favorite moments on the island with you, and I invite you to do the same so we can keep these memories alive forever under this video. I'll never forget when the front of the raft started to go underwater when Jaden and I were on our way to the island. We really thought it was going to sink, and I was ready to start swimming with my purse above the water, but we made it to the island with no problem. I remember having a raft completely to ourselves, which made our adventure feel extra special and personal. The 2 rocking chairs on Huck's Landing felt like they were there just for us to have front row seats to the Liberty Bell passing by. The barrel bridge never failed to put a smile on my face. It's the only acceptable time to run at full speed in the park. Otherwise, the barrels bob and wobble, which made my mom yell so loud the Haunted Mansion queue could hear. I'm sure they had fun watching, because I sure did. After the shooting arcade closed, I yearned for a Frontier-themed shooting game, and Fort Langhorne was there to fill that void for me. And what cooler target than a runaway mine train? I'll miss the smell of the old wood in Fort Langhorne, and it had the best views of Big Thunder, which is one of my favorite coasters ever. But nothing beats the thrill of being jump-scared in the Tom Sawyer Caves. The second to last day for Pixie and Pirate Pass holders to experience the island, Jaden and I were hanging out by Harper's Mill, and a cast member handed us 2 bookmarks, which was such a nice surprise and keepsake to remember the island by. A fellow Tom Sawyer fan named Austin interviewed us about the island and its changes. The next day, vacationers experiencing the island for the first time, filled with joy, juxtaposed fans shedding tears and reminiscing on their years of good memories with the island. I sat in a rifle roost with Jaden, and we looked out the gun holes, watching the rain and Liberty Bell lit up and decorated with patriotic bunting. We spent our last moments together with Austin in Mr. Joe's cave, sharing memories while it rained outside. The barrel bridge was closed all day long until we were on our way out, and the cast members let us go Tom and Huck's way. We got to walk through Harper's Mill one last time, and Jaden and I stomped our way through a big puddle to get to our last ride ever on the rafts.
Paul said they're working on some type of gas engine. I thought his name was Joe. Either way though, they're going to be clearing out my island for it.